Good evening. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. I hereby call to order the December 8th meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee. My name is Linda Lukowski, and I'm the chair of the school committee, and I want to welcome those of you watching at home and those who are here tonight. I'm going to read aloud our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families and the wider community who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners, students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The chairperson's remark. Thank you, Brian, for putting this back on. I was honored to be at the National Honor Society last night and watching our students get inducted. It was wonderful to see that, and congratulations to all of them. I also went over to Pine Grove to take a little tour, and the principal and vice principal went out of their way to show me around the beautiful school that Pine Grove has. As I walked around the school, I saw our students work throughout the classrooms and corridors, and you could hear the students talking with their teachers, talking with their peers, and then I heard the music of the kids practicing their play. On any given day, there is a similar scene at any one of the schools, from the principal and vice principal of Pine Grove taking time to give me that tour, and for the schools and teachers, staff, and school committee members that I've seen volunteering at the vaccination clinics. It just gave me a sense of pride of every one of our staff members, regardless of their roles across the district, for their unwavering dedication and support to our students and schools, trying to get everyone back into a routine as best they can. I want to give a huge thank you to Conley's Pharmacy for the vaccination clinics they put on in all three of our towns. It was greatly appreciated. I also want to acknowledge the extraordinary work that our school nurses, public health nurses, and contact tracers have been doing to keep up with our ever-changing COVID cases. The work they are doing for our district and communities is intricate and time-consuming. So please, if you are contacted by any of these wonderful nurses, they are doing their jobs the best they can to make sure everyone is aware and safe. Please give them the respect they deserve. It's in the best interest of all of us that they continue to do this wonderful work that they're doing. The most important thing that we can do is we'll get through this, but we have to be kind to each other in order to get through it. You'll probably be taking chairperson's remarks off now. Oral communications from the public. Members of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes, longer with the permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the school committee? Nope. Okay. Student of the Month. My favorite item on the agenda. The Student of the Month program was established in 2019 by the school committee to honor exemplary students. Nominations are collected throughout the year from staff members at all 5 schools. Nominations are made through 5 categories: character, service to fellow students, teachers, or community; character, dedication, determination, and persistence in the face of obstacles; character, attitude towards learning and determination; achievement, high achievement in academics, athletics, or performing arts; achievement, significant improvement in academics, athletics, or performing arts. Selections are made by the chair of the school committee, the superintendent, and 1 member of the policy and advocacy subcommittee. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Patrick Kelly, who will be speaking on behalf of Jen Howman, who nominated the December Student of the Month, Mason Colby. Jim was unable to be here this evening, so Patrick, can you come up and tell us about Mason's accomplishments?
Mason, do you want to come up with me? 'Cause I'd love to have everyone seeing you while I speak about you. So this is kind of a really heartwarming moment that Mr. Hounham shared, and I do wish he was able to be here tonight as well, but unfortunately he's not able to be here. So I'm going to describe a scene from Mr. Hounham's adventure education class. Our class was performing the trust fall. This is a task that requires a student to climb 3 steps up the bleachers and fall backwards into the arms of their classmates. In this particular class, there's a student who has difficulty balancing. He wanted to attempt the trust fall, but was unable to climb the bleachers. Mason immediately volunteered to carry the student up the steps, stabilize him with a hug at the top, and then gently release him into the arms of waiting students. I've not seen an act of kindness and compassion for another student like this in a long time. I think this kind of typifies what we hope for from our student body, the kindness, the compassion, and the willingness to help each other. On top of it, for Mason, it's a moment of selflessness that shows the caring that we have and that we hope for from our students for their fellow classmates. So Mason, thank you so much for what you've done already to help kind of integrate into Triton High School. So thank you. So now's when we're going to take pictures. So we're going to take pictures with Ms. Lakovsky and with Superintendent Forget, and then with your parents. I'm going to use your camera to start so that you have it as well.
Thank you.
So if you want to get together, you're in, Brian.
So we'll start here.
Yep. So this is for mom. So we do best mass smiles.
You can see it in the eyes.
You can always see it. This is going to be for me.
A lot.
Okay. Now with parents.
All right.
Actually, mine too. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It doesn't happen much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The consent agenda, I would read aloud the donations. A monetary donation was given by the Weston family in the amount of $10,000 to be used in support of advancing learning needs and technology innovation. Donations totaling $260 were made in honor of Ronald Corcoran to be used in the athletic department where needed. The following people gave donations: Peter and Karen Atherton, $100, Diane Giarmida, $50, Mary Goldika, $10, Sally Murtaugh, $50, Marie Clements, $50. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Sorry. Any discussion? All those in favor? Kaylee's not here. Okay, out of respect to visitors, we will be taking the first general action item out of order so that we don't keep them waiting longer than necessary. I'd like to welcome Triton alum and veteran Donald Jarvis and Tracy Goodwin.
Go with this, Don.
Yeah.
It's just Donnie.
from Preserving Newbury to join the superintendent with a presentation on proposed installation of a POW MIA Chair of Honor Memorial in the Triton Stadium. Brian?
Thank you, Linda. So this, so before Donnie speaks and explains this, just to give you some context, Donnie came to me 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, in the midst of COVID, with this proposal, and I'll let him explain exactly what it is. But Donnie is a proud Triton alum and veteran, and so he has been a fierce advocate for veterans in our area. And so I was honored to have him come and present this, and hope you will support the proposal that he has before you tonight. Thank you, Donnie.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you to the school committee for having me. Tracy can't be here because she's dealing with a few issues with family, but she's definitely watching us. But a few years ago, well, I'll rewind. I graduated from high school in 2004. Shortly after graduating from high school, I joined the Army National Guard out of Low Street in Newburyport as a combat engineer. I went to basic training in September 2006. I was on a bird heading to Iraq in June 2007. Actually, my brother graduated high school that day. We went from the high school graduation straight to the Armory, and then I went straight to Iraq. Did Iraq 07, 08. I came back home for a few years, went back overseas to Afghanistan 2011, 2012. That tour was not as long. I was only in Afghanistan for about less than a year, less than a month before I got injured from a 250-pound explosive. I'm completely deaf on my right side, and I have all right side injuries. Since coming back from the hospital and getting out of the service, as Brian touched on, I've been very active in the veteran community. First, it started locally here in the community, and it started as a therapy for me. And then that grew to me now working with veterans across the state, doing a variety of projects. 2015, I started doing work at the First Parish Cemetery on High Road. And Tracy and I formed a group called Preserving Newbury, where we've dedicated years of working with the veteran graves in this general area. We brought wreaths across America here that same year, but what we also did is we started working with our high schools and our students through every project possible. From 2015 till the pandemic, we ended our season in October working in the cemeteries with the Triton High School football and soccer team, which is about 80 kids, which is a lot. However, it was great. I looked forward to it. I loved it. One year we cooked hot dogs. One year I got pizza. The kids are phenomenal. But every project that we have done since then has always been, how can we involve the kids? You may be familiar with the flag box, the Byfield Fire Station. That was one of my projects. Again, we made the kids involved with that. So this project here ties into all of that. Being a veteran myself, I am a strong advocate on never forgetting those who have served before us. To date, according to the Department of Defense, we have 81,600 individuals who are currently prisoners of war or missing in action. That number fluctuates every day. Thankfully, we're not in a major war right now, so hopefully those numbers won't grow too much more. But the 80,000 numbers is this whole community gone missing, never coming back home. So when I went to Brian a few years ago about this, the high school stadium is called the Memorial Stadium. And I thought it was appropriate to add a memorial chair, the chair of honor, that honors all of our veterans who served, but most in particularly those veterans who have never come back, those veterans who have been prisoners of war. This single chair in the Memorial Stadium will symbolize that, but also be an education and a talking piece to all our students, right? And to remind the students, whether they're from kindergarten or getting ready to do graduation on that field, that, you know, men and women who they may meet throughout their life wear a uniform to serve our country. They are not guaranteed to come back. You know, I feel blessed and fortunate that I've been able to come back, even though I have I'm damaged goods, right? But I do the best we can, and I drive to keep that message going. And through the chair, I'm hoping to echo that through the stadium. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I did prepare a document that I believe you all have seen. It's kind of lengthy, I apologize. But every major stadium here has one. Fenway Park has one, TD Garden has one, Gillette Stadium has one. I would love to add Triton to that list.
Thank you, Donnie. So just to clarify tonight, what we're looking for is for planning approval, for us to move forward with planning this before any installation or purchase of any products. This is something that Donnie had talked about, raising funds.
Yep,
that there be no cost.
It's going to be no cost to the school. I'm going to donate everything. I'm going to raise some of the funds through, one of my ideas is creating a challenge coin, which is unique to certain things. You can get them as a token of appreciation, or they can symbolize something. I want to create a challenge coin that symbolizes this dedication. I also would love to work with the school committee and Brian on dedicating this around POW Day, if not on POW Day, which is in September, on a Friday night, which I would love to tie in with the high school football team. And through that, I would love to work with our students to also be part of the ceremony, rather it be in the band or singing the national anthem or singing a patriotic song. I want this to be for our students, by our students.
So the hope tonight is for planning approval so that we can begin the work and be ready
By September.
by September.
Sorry.
Thank you for your presentation. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I'm fully in support of it. I do have one question. I think it's more for Brian, and that is, do we have to amend? I know we have a policy about memorials. Is this?
So the policy that exists is about naming. So so if you were to approve this, you're amending your own policy, right? So there's that. But the policy explicitly does not allow the naming after it explicitly notes a staff member or a student who's passed away. That's what the policy explicitly prohibits. But if there was anything in any conflict, you'd be able to approve this
Right.
and forego any policy.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm fully in support of it, and thank you so much. I have two boys that graduated, soccer players. They participated in the cemetery cleanup that you organized and each year, and they had such a great time. So thank you for all that you've done.
My honor. Thank you.
Does anybody else? I also want to thank you for your service and thank you for this memorial. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to provide planning approval for the installation of a POW MIA Chair of Honor in the Triton High School Stadium, subject to final approval once plans are confirmed.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
Donnie, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you,
We'll be
Brian. I
talking.
appreciate it. Take care.
Awesome.
Have a good night.
Great to
And
see you.
happy holidays.
Thank you. You as well.
New business, would any members like to raise items for inclusion on a future agenda item? Paul?
I'm wondering if we could ask the superintendent at some future meeting, maybe after the budget, but about discussing being remote-ready. And I don't get the sense that we are now in conversations with Brian. I'm just wondering if steps could be taken to reinvigorate that program in the event that we need it.
Okay. The monthly CPAC update. Caitlin?
They did not provide an update, but they are always looking for new members. So please check out their Facebook page and become a member. And if you have any questions, reach out to them.
Thank you. The DCC report. At the November 18th DCC meeting, School Business Administrator Kyle Warren presented the reserve funding presentation, similar to the one he did for all of us last month. It was well received by our town officials from all 3 towns that were in attendance. Salisbury Board of Selectmen had met to discuss the middle school, high school facilities assessment and decided to support the school committee submitting a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Raleigh and Newbury had previously supported. I would like to thank all three towns for their support for this. December 9th meeting has been canceled. Oh, sorry. And the next meeting is at the end of January. The alternative assessment and landlord-tenant working groups will be meeting in between those two dates. The DEI research. Brian?
So generally, this is the committee discussion. Is this something, I'm happy to give an update as part of my superintendent's report where I'm at. Generally, this has been a separate item for you to give an update with your work.
If I could, yeah. So I think the update here is, as of the last meeting, we were talking about how with the kind of district administration pushing their timeline out more, it didn't make sense for the school committee to do focused research up front. But what we talked about doing was taking existing data, something that portrays where we're at right now. So in board docs, you'll actually find the link to a website that has that existing data in it. You can, it's pulled straight from DESE's website. You can either look at it by school, and it will allow you to click through to the specific information on DESE's site and drill down, or you have the option where there was similar content that could be compared across schools. It's actually put in there in a chart, and then also the links are available if you want to drill down any farther. So that's in the agenda in board docs right now. So you have access to that already.
Does anybody have?
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
go
I
ahead.
can make one other comment. This is just something that has been on my mind with this, and I want to state at the start, I'm not disagreeing with the plan to study and take our time. I completely agree with the fact that there are a lot of ways to do this wrong, and we want to make sure we get it right. But I've been continuing to think about the fact that in the classroom right now, that's not an option for teachers who are there. They're dealing with the question of how to present subjects in history classes that have been non-problematic for so long without being called out as teaching something they're not. Present, the difficulty of how to be more inclusive in the books that are presented. And I have been racking my brain with trying to come up with a way that we can support that somewhat difficult task while still taking our time to continue this. And I don't like coming to you and saying that I don't know how to do that, but I don't. But I wanted to put it in front of everybody, just if there's a thought, if there's a way, a statement of support might just be seen as empty words, and I want it to be more than that, but I can't think of what it should be, but I know that I don't want to leave teachers who are dealing with that and trying to do the best by their students that are in front of them right now today, feeling unsupported from, while we take our time to do this.
So can I just add in there, so the work that we're doing in a very organized way doesn't preclude a lot of other work that's currently happening. Anna led a book group or a class this summer, and I participated in it. And the book is it multicultural teaching? Amazing resource. Incredible, I think there were 15 teachers that participated in that, some incredible discussions and good work happening. At the high school level, I think it's most prevalent, most real. We had an incident, and I alerted you to that. The level, what can I say and not say? To say egregious, it was a disgusting statement that was put out there. We drafted a statement. Principal Kelly put that out there. I've not had one response. Patrick has not received one response. Someone should be irate, right? So Patrick has actually convened a group of students and staff that are starting this discussion, I should say continuing this discussion. So there is definitely work being done, and kudos to Patrick and students, the student council, and there's a group. I looked down here the other day, and it was a big square right there. There must have been at least 20, if not 25 students who have volunteered to be part of this work, and not just student council, not just your typical student leaders who have stepped up previously. So there is work happening. There are discussions happening, and encouraging people that if there's something that arises, say something, let's talk about it. And so it's hard because, I mean, you acknowledge a real challenge in that it's there, right? Anyone who believes that it is not something that is dealt with across the district on a daily basis is incredibly naive. And so it's something that we have to address, but I want to do it very methodically. And so, yeah.
Does anybody else have anything?
I just want to say, like, Paul, I hear your concerns. I think that kind of there's the long ongoing here, which is not fallen off. The question is, how do you deal with it systemically? And I think that's the piece that needs to take longer in order for it to happen well. And if it's rushed, I think you could not only do damage in whatever effort you're trying now, but you could do damage to what exists already. And I know that may be somewhat short-term, I won't even say pain, but discomfort for that long-term game. But I think it, to some degree, has to go the way that it's planned right now.
No, and I'm not questioning that at all. I just was trying to think of something that, like an interim, I don't need to use the word gesture because it sounds like it should have the word empty in front of it. And I don't have a suggestion. I can't think of anything that would be meaningful while also not disrupting that plan. But I'm just one person, so I thought I would put it out there, and if others do, great.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of hard for all of us, and I think that's why Brian is bringing in Michael Eatman to help us to facilitate those exact things.
I should just keep this going now and just do this section right now so I can just clarify that. So we've contracted with Michael Eatman, and he's been working with several districts. He is a black man, and he is the most approachable individual that I have ever dealt with in addressing racial issues, and he deals with us about cultural proficiencies is the way he comes at this. So every district he's worked with has had nothing but, oh my gosh, I wish I could have him 24/7. So his approach is making sure that the leadership, capital L, is aligned in our approach and our beliefs and our understanding of the importance of cultural proficiency, and actually doing some very methodical and deliberate work. So that's going to start with he would call it the executive leadership team, so the central office team, and then over late winter into spring, branch out into the full district-wide leadership team, all 18, including assistant principals. And then beyond that, then bringing in the rest of the community, staff, students, entire community, when there's a common alignment. So the discussion we've been having is, where do we include the committee? Your community members, but your district leaders. And so in his response, I think it was the 17th conversation I had with him last week, was, let's not decide that right now. Let's start doing this, and we can then identify, certainly, I mean, Linda, Narissa, and I speak regularly, identify when it makes sense. But I will tell you, my preference is as soon as feasibly possible, right? Because as soon as the committee and the district leadership team, call it all 18, are on the same page and believe this is the steps, these are the steps, these are the priorities, and this is why it's important, and it's much more advanced than that, but those basic questions, then when we launch, we don't have the false starts, it will be challenged instantly. And if we're not speaking the same language and coming from the same place with the same goals and the same priorities, we'll lose our traction. And I don't want to lose traction. There's too much work to do. And again, the silence last week was deafening when that comment came out. So I'll stop there.
The next item is the special education update. We will now receive an update on special education general matters and recent efforts that have been underway from Administrator of Special Education Shannon Nolan.
I just want to start by queuing this up. A lot of other talking, which is great, but I have to say something. So what I asked Shannon to do is, this is not a presentation on all the programs or whatever. This is I said, hey, Shannon, let's give the committee a sense of what's been going on. She's now been here, it's almost 6 months, holy cow. And there's a lot of really good work being done. So that's the purpose here. If you have questions, let's ask them, but there's probably a lot that we would probably have to do a supplement. But just to kind of cue that up, that's the nature here. That was the question I asked. What you been doing?
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to kind of talk about all that we've been doing in special education. Everything that I present here, I'm not doing alone. I have the staff here, the support. We've really started to build on a lot of things and add a lot of things, and I appreciate being able to be here and share that with you. So coming in, the first thing that talking with Brian a lot and talking about, kind of building trust and building a community within the special education culture in our district. So one of the things that I've been trying to do is meet with principals. So I meet with them, we collaborate, we talk about things that are happening in the building, things that I can support them with, things that they can support me with. They're on their monthly meetings. I had one today with the principal, and I showed up and she was like, oh, I don't know if I have anything to talk about. And then we ended up for an hour. So it's like, we keep the meetings no matter what, but something comes up. So it's just that collaboration time so that I know what's happening in the buildings and I know how I can support them. I've also have monthly collaboration with the ETCs, who are the facilitators of the special education meetings. And during those meetings, we've done some PD. We have a consultant from Landmark that has come in and done some professional development with us. We have coming up this month, our attorney is going to come in and do some professional development. We talk about cases, about things that are going on, and again, just how can I support them and how can they support me in what we're doing. And obviously, in between that, there's phone calls, there's emails, but this meeting is a monthly meeting that we get together. When I came in here, in August, I started the Special Education Spotlight, which is just a monthly special education update. It goes out to the special education staff. Some of it is sharing what's going on in the classrooms, sharing articles, just upcoming dates that we have coming up in the special education world. So it's just kind of to keep up communication in a way for all of us to hear the same thing. And that just goes out on the first day of each month through email. I've been doing this was bi-monthly, just going to schools and sitting in the conference room or sitting in the library and just being there for staff to stop by, to ask questions, make comments, concerns. Some of them, the first couple of times, it's just been kind of staff introducing themselves. I know sometimes that it's hard to come to central office and share your thoughts, so I just feel like if I can go to the buildings and they can stop by and they know I'm going to be there, it's a time to just talk about things, and if I have to follow up, I'll follow up. But a lot of it has been just stopping in and saying hi and some concerns and questions and things like that. So the next one I'll do is in January. I try to change the times. I did it in the afternoon, so I'll be there in January in the morning, and I go to each school. And then just informal school visits, just, seeing what's going on in the classrooms, talking with the teachers. Some of the times, a few of the teachers have invited me in to kind of observe, do an informal observation and meet the kids. So it's been wonderful being able to be in the building. And it's something that I try to start my day in the buildings, because once once we get here, sometimes it's hard to get out. But it has been nice to be able to connect with the students and with the staff and kind of hear about what's happening in the classrooms and what's been going on in special education. So I will continue to do those things as we move forward. Through talking with staff and meeting with staff and administrators, some of the things that we've started to put into place to strengthen our academics in the area of special education and to support that Tier 1 instruction that we're doing and to support the social emotional learning. When Kara Briley came here, she spoke of the training that we're doing with the neurosequential model of education. So that's helping support students who have experienced trauma and learning about the brain and kind of connecting that to what we do in the classroom. So we've done that with special educators from the high school and the counselors. And some of the things that we've learned, some of the special educators and the counselors are kind of trying things out and asking for resources. So it's 5 one-hour courses, workshops. So it's an introductory course. Another thing that we have done is to support that Tier 1 instruction at the Tier 2 or Tier 3 level. I purchased for all the special educators at the elementary for it's K1 and 2 geodes. I don't know if Kim Croto has talked about geodes, but they're decodable text and they support.
You heard Kim talk about geodes, trust me.
But they align with Foundations, our Tier 1 phonics program, and you can use them to the students can use the geodes to kind of apply the concepts that they're learning during Foundations, and the special education teachers can use these decodable texts during Tier 2 or Tier 3 instruction. They also build background knowledge. They're knowledge building texts. They're amazing. If you're ever in a school, ask to see them. They really are, and the kids love them, and the topics are unbelievable. And you can use them they also can align with Wilson. So we use Wilson a lot in our Tier 3. So the skills that students learn during Wilson, this is the application of them for the geodes. So those have been purchased for each elementary school, and we've done trainings on how to use them and how to implement them in the interventions. We also have about 12 teachers that are getting trained in level 1 and 2 Orton-Gillingham, Orton-Gillingham is a program that is used to teach a systematic, research-based program used to teach. Wilson is based on Orton-Gillingham, used to teach students to read. So we have about 12 teachers that are doing this after school hours, getting trained. There's 4 levels of Orton-Gillingham, so they are getting trained in level 1 and 2. We also have LIPS training that we're gonna have in January. Kim Croto set this up before I came in, and when she left this on my desk, which was excellent because I'm very excited to be able to move forward with the LIPS training. It was supposed to be in person, but I've been in contact with the trainers, and we're going to do it virtually. And again, it's a program for teaching students how to read. It can be used in conjunction with Orton-Gillingham or Wilson, and it focuses mostly on phonemic awareness, but it's mostly a Tier 3 program for our students. We also have, I had some special educators come to me about the math curriculum that using in the sub-separate programs. So we did some research and looked into what we could use, and we have a few classrooms at NES and the middle school that are implementing the Equals math program, which is a Tier 2, Tier 3 program for students with disabilities, and it teaches those prerequisite skills and those essential skills that students need to access the math standards. So they have started using that. We purchased professional development for it, so they are doing the professional development and implementing it. And I was actually able to go to Kate Goodwin's class and see her using it, do an informal observation of her using the program. And as Kara Briley spoke about when she was here, I'm a member of the MTSS Academy, which is, we're looking at how we can support the district, what our Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 supports are for social emotional learning throughout the district. So I'm working with that team to see how we can, what we need, what we have, and what we need to do moving forward. Does anyone have questions before I move on? Yep.
Just have one. When you're talking about Orton Gillingham, is that going to be supplemental training to essentially what the teachers already have, or is that a deeper dive? Because I mean, my understanding was it's kind of the foundation. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how that fits into kind of the structure that already exists above it.
So Orton Gillingham, we use Foundations, we use Wilson. All of those programs are based on Orton Gillingham. So when you're trained in Orton Gillingham, yes, you have a deeper understanding of where Wilson came from and where Foundations came from. And it's, we moved forward in this training because a lot of our students with Wilson, it's so structured and so intense that some kids don't make progress with it. So this program is more individualized. And you can kind of pull more of what the student needs and build the program on that. So it will supplement what we're doing, but give them a better understanding.
Okay, and this is, the 12 teachers that are going through this training, are they general educators or are they special educators?
They're special educators.
Okay, so this is this in like one of the upper levels of MTSS that this is being implemented? I guess I'm struggling at figuring out, like, I kind of know what happens in the classroom already, and I know what happens sort of as a, you know, an escalation, I guess, when students need additional supports. I'm trying to figure out where this is fitting.
So, yeah, absolutely. So you have a student who gets the Tier 1 instruction, but they're on an IEP, they're learning to read, but they're not making progress with the Tier 1 instruction, so you move to, you know, what do they need? So you look at their assessments, what they need, and Orton Gillingham is a program that you would use to teach them how to read outside of the classroom. So you take the Tier 1, they get the Tier 1, and this just supports what they're learning in the classroom.
Okay, so it would be a special educator or a specialist?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep, it's outside the classroom. It can be small group with 2 or 3 other students. It can be one-to-one. And it's an individualized instruction outside of the classroom to help them learn how to read.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Does that help? Thank you. One of the other things that I've been working with the ETCs on and the special education teachers within the district, within InDistrict programs, is just looking at the InDistrict programs, learning about them, trying to get in, do some observations, meet the students, but also look at the description, the criteria, the entrance, exit criteria, the profiles of the students, and just work with the teachers to kind of strengthen that understanding of exactly what type of student profile and what type of student we're servicing in those programs. And so I have a team at NES that we're working together to kind of really look at the ASD program, and the new program at NES, Kate Goodwin is developing a program description, and we're going to work together to kind of refine that and make sure it helps when you're at an IEP meeting or anything, and you speak with a parent and you talk about, well, maybe this is a good program, to really understand what happens in the program. So these are the programs that we're looking at. One of the things that I've been working on with the ETCs is the exploration of potential in-district programs. And so one of the types of programs we're looking at is whether the district needs a language-based program. So the way that we're doing that is we are working with Ann Larson, who is a consultant from Landmark, and she's been meeting with the ETCs, doing some professional development. We've been pulling student data, reviewing the data, and really looking at our population, what our students need, and if there is a need for an in-district program and what that would look like, because there's so many different ways that the program could look like. So that is something that we're doing, and really looking at what's happening in the classroom for Tier 1 and what would it look like if we needed a program for these students. The other exploration of potential in-district programming has happened is looking at whether we need a therapeutic program. We know that there's many behaviors and social emotional struggles that are happening throughout the district, and we have students that leave our district to be supported in other schools. And so I am working with the wellness coordinator, Kara Briley, the school psychologist, and the BCBAs to, again, look at student data. The data looks different in this situation than it does for looking for a language-based program, but to really see what is needed, what is happening, and it kind of intertwines with the MTSS SEL Academy, what's happening at the Tier 1 level, and what do we need for student supports as students are struggling. I've consulted with the North Shore Consortium Mental Health Consultation Team. The North Shore Consortium is a school, they have an upper school and a lower school, and they work with students in a therapeutic program. And this team, I've met with them. They haven't met with our team yet that's working on this, but I've met with them just to talk about what's going on in our district, what it may look like if we had a therapeutic program, what they would recommend, and how they can help us if we move forward with that. And then yes, sorry.
And I just wanted to say that I think one of the things that I've heard from parents is that very commonly when students are having issues that could be addressed by a therapeutic program, it's like swings, like they need it, and then they kind of, it resolves, I guess, a little bit, and then sort of they need kind of this deeper, more intensive help again. Is that the type of thing you're looking at, or are you looking at something that's like a long duration? I'm just trying to get an idea of kind of where you're headed.
So as we dove into this, our thoughts were looking into a program where students could be placed so they don't leave the district. So that is one component of it, but exactly what you're saying, how about those students who just need those supports in order to be successful in the classroom and not having to leave and be in a separate program? That has come up too. So it's kind of expanded into, what supports do we have? And that's what I've talked with the North Shore Consortium a lot about too. What do they do to support their students so that they can be in the classroom? And is there any way that we can kind of try that in our district? So it's expanded to exactly what you're saying. And I've been working with the CPAC. I've attended the CPAC meetings. They've had a speaker, they had a speech and language therapist come in and speak about dyslexia. They have been looking for other speakers also to bring in. We've been talking about bringing in staff members who could kind of support the parents and questions that they have. So we have met at meetings outside of official CPAC meetings. The months that there's not official CPAC meetings, I meet with them. And just kind of learning about what initiatives they had in place before I came in and how I can support them. And just, how, again, I can support them and they can support me moving forward. So one of the things last time we met was that I had told them about the special education spotlight, that it goes out monthly, and I asked them if they wanted to put something in that monthly to staff. So this past month, they added an update in the spotlight that will go out to staff. So staff can then, do you want to join the CPAC? What's happening with the CPAC, when the meetings are, and things like that. So that's been a nice partnership to kind of start up and build. And that is so far what we've been doing in special education. Do you have any questions?
5 months.
I know. How long have you been here?
I love it. It's wonderful. Thank you for having me.
No, I just think it's incredible the amount of work that you've put into this to support students, parents, the community. I mean, this is what Triton needed, was to have families feel that Triton cares about their special education students. I know you're probably going to hear me say this a lot, but is there a move to co-teaching for special education teachers working with regular ed teachers?
Yes, that's happening at PGS. That is happening. It's something that Anna and I actually have talked a lot about. Yeah, and I don't have that in here, but it's more of, I think of it as more of a whole district moving forward. There are special education teachers that are involved in it, so yes, it is something that we're working on. And I know that SES has met with Anna this past week to talk about that, so that's absolutely on the agenda.
Yeah, because I think every teacher can benefit from the
Absolutely.
things that are being learned with the special education teachers.
I agree, for sure.
And I applaud you, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Paul?
The idea of a therapeutic program and a language-based program, it sounds like that's kind of preliminary. Sorry. Yeah. The therapeutic program and the language-based program, are those things that you're looking at preliminary as being maybe something we'd implement in one of the schools or across the grade levels all the way up from K to 12, or just kind of trying to see maybe we need this, maybe we don't yet? Is that...
So when we started it, we're looking at, do we need it? And that's something that Ann Larson is helping us with also. Do we need it at each school? Could we put it at each school? What would it look like? So it really depends on, as we're looking at data and looking at needs, that will drive that decision, whether it needs to be at each school, whether it's a district program, and how it looks. Both of those initiatives.
I know we've said this many times, but a fully developed co-teaching model is very expensive in the ideal. So part of it is a lot of assessing, a lot of visioning, and there certainly will be things presented in the budget proposal, but a lot of, to get to the ideal, it's significant dollars that we know we're not going to be able to jump right to the ideal, for sure.
No, but little bits at a time.
Absolutely.
New things that Shannon's bringing in for special education teachers would also be great for regular ed teachers, and just going outside Triton into other schools or the consortium to ask what they're doing to benefit our students is a great way to do it. I know we're not going to have the dollars to do it, but we have to make an attempt to make sure that regular ed teachers are understanding the special education children that are in their classes too.
For sure.
And the other side, right, that special
Exactly.
education teachers understand the curriculum and all
Exactly.
that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's something Anna and I have talked a lot about.
Yeah.
So can I just say, to say thank you to Shannon, so certainly she started with, it takes a lot of people, and that is true. There's a lot of people who have been here a long time and do great things, and there are newer people who are doing great things, but a lot of this has to do with leadership, so that has to do with Shannon, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, just showing up into the schools, having a presence is going to make the teachers and administration feel comfortable to come to you if there is an issue. Okay. The next item is long-term financial planning. The last couple of years, the school committee has been talking about how to improve the financial stability of the district and how to improve our bond rating. Over the past few months, a plan has been formed and presented to have input from the finance subcommittee, from the full school committee, and it was presented at the district communication committee. We will now receive the update from School Business Administrator Kyle Warren.
Gladly. All right. So last we spoke was at we reviewed the, I apologize, one moment. So we met with the DCC a couple weeks ago, was it? And discussed with the communities the plan that Kevin and I had proposed of onboarding the OPEB liability payment plan, as well as stabilization fund. And this is all in conjunction with looking at the building project that may be on the horizon there and making sure that our bond rating is in a good spot. So it was really nice to hear from the communities that level of support that they shared. Going forward from here, we had discussed next steps of putting a financial policy in place to align with the proposal that Kevin and I shared of those payment streams and the budget process. So looking towards the next finance subcommittee meeting, discussing what a draft might look like and taking it from there. I don't know if you want to.
No, I think that's the key tonight. It's just a quick update that the Finance Subcommittee spoke about it. I think the most important thing that Kyle just said was the towns really supported this, which was, I don't want to say unexpected, but it was very nice to hear. And so that DCC, it was not a subtle support, it was an emphatic support that we need to be doing this long-term planning that we've been talking about for a long time, and we're now in a place where we have some reserves building. Would have liked to have had different circumstances that caused this, but it is what it is at this point, and we have reserves that are giving us the chance to take this step now. So, yeah, lots of good work ahead. So you will be seeing a policy coming through the Finance Subcommittee, and the goal is to, at the Springtown meetings, to be proposing the development of a stabilization fund. So more to follow, but just an update. And it's exciting. I mean,
It really is, yeah.
oddly exciting, but exciting.
Go ahead, Marissa.
Just had one quick question, which is I'm trying to kind of have an idea of what timeline you're thinking of, Kyle, for this. Obviously, a policy can be big and a lot of work, and I'm assuming this one will be pretty comprehensive. Are we looking at having this done by the final budget, before then, after then? How does this fit in with the kind of the rest of the schedule of everything you're working on?
I think in conjunction with the full budget process, absolutely. At the next Finance Subcommittee meeting, my goal is to present for certain elements that we could be including in this policy and having the discussion of what we would like to include, how we want to tailor it, and what that final document looks like. I think it is important to have this. So next agenda item actually is the timeline on the budget. In March is when we have that final budget vote. I think to have a solid draft of that would be perfect at that point in time, because if we were to establish a stabilization fund, that would require a vote of the communities at town meeting in the springtime. So we would want to make sure that there's ample time to have that facilitated.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And I was going to say, I think the communities will want to see the policy along with the establishing of the fund.
I was thinking that as well, which
Yeah.
was part of the reasoning behind my question. And then obviously, we also have a very busy meeting schedule coming up. So
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how that was fitting together as well.
I mean, I think that, like Kyle said, what he'll present to you in a couple weeks.
Busy, yeah.
You see that glaze down there? MCPPO classes, it's budget. Sorry, it's not something to laugh at. I just remember it well. The discussion that we'll have at the December finance is the kind of the nuts and bolts of the policy, right? What is the funding we want to talk about? The rest of it, between Kevin and Kyle, there's enough boilerplate, was it the North Andover one that you had pulled? Sure. That's not going to be a huge discussion, I think, about the this, thou, arts, and the T's and C's and all that. So I think ideally, we would skip the policy subcommittee, because this is something that will rely on the expertise of Kyle and Kevin to say this is what we should have, and I don't think that needs to go through readings with the policy subcommittee and the full committee. That's a full public discussion. This is why, this is what we're going to do. And if we could be approving a policy with the final budget and delivering the whole package to the towns to say, here's the final budget, here's the vote we're looking for establishing a stabilization account, and here's the policy that we're going to follow once we get your approval, once we get it, not if, then I think we have the best chance of then spending 2 months helping people understand that we're not putting money in it. This is an opportunity to be wise in the future. So.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Kyle. The FY23 budget development process. Work has been underway in the schools and finance office to start the budget process, and in about a month, the school committee will begin its work for an intense couple of months. In preparation for that, School Business Administrator Kyle Warren is going to review the timeline and process for the development of the fiscal year 2023 district operating budget.
Thank you kindly. All right, so right on the agenda here, we give a nice outline of what the process looks like. We're returning to a more conventional method this year. So quick flashback to FY22 with an atypical process where, because of the unknowns that we were navigating, the budget was essentially flat funded for all non-salary line items. And then, I mean, I think we remember the process at this point, but it was much more condensed process than we typically would go through. So now moving towards FY23, getting back to the conventional approach of giving principals, directors the opportunity to advocate for their buildings, advocate for their departments. Certainly we're well underway at this point. Starting in October, had initial meetings with all of the principals and the directors. The usual budget book that you've seen in prior years, continuing with that approach. So, but not at the same time just taking last year's budget and moving forward. It's the full evaluation process of each department's budget. So looking at the timeline here that's presented in the agenda, October to January, continuing those meetings, and then January 18th, 19th, and 20th is when those presentations will occur. The first night is on the 18th is typically with the elementary school principals. The 19th is with the middle school and high school principals, as well as the athletic director. And then on the 20th is the remaining departments, professional development and curriculum, special education, technology, as well as other district-wide line items. Once we get through that, it's like Linda described, just really full force to March. Throughout January, we'll continue to meet. In February 16th is when, February 9th is when the tentative budget is presented. History on that, so typically the tentative budget will reflect the high water mark and it's communicated to the communities. After that, we'll continue to meet, and then on March 9th is when the final budget is approved, and then that budget itself is distributed out to the communities, and there's a vote that would occur at the annual town meetings in each of the 3 communities. Any questions on some of these individual items? I didn't go through all of them, or questions on the process, things you'd like to see?
Can I just make a request that as we're coming into the 18th, 19th, and 20th, that we get those materials as early as possible? Because it's such a phenomenal amount of material that we get ahead of time to go through, which I'm not complaining about, like, the more the better. But it's a lot. It takes way more than a regular meeting, and we have those meetings night after night after night. So if we could get it even like I don't want to say like a week in advance, you know, that would be terrific, because sometimes it feels like time is short, and I don't feel like I have a chance to do due diligence that I would like to do.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I'll commit to that. So the current plan is that the Friday before, we would be delivering to you a complete budget booklet. So you would have a binder with all of the presentations, all of the documents for the next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday meetings. If we can get it sooner, we will. We should have it by, it just means we have to have them all so we can deliver a full binder. We could deliver the PDFs, via email ahead of time as soon as we have those, if that works. I don't think we'll have it a full week prior.
I agree. That would be a little challenge. I'm meeting with the insurance company because they have their meetings that last week of December, and then we get some of those final numbers. And but absolutely by that Friday.
Yeah.
Full commitment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're all done?
I'll gladly field some more questions if anybody has them.
No. Superintendent's report, Brian?
Thank you. How do you follow that? So I will go through this quickly, some of the things we've already touched upon, but just a rough update over the start of the year. Just to note, we have had, as I noted here, as of the writing of this report, we had seen 69 positives over the month of November alone. We've had 31 since returning from Thanksgiving. So this month, we're more on pace to, in December, to be more towards 100. We know the numbers are ticking up. We are doing our best to remind folks and be diligent. There are, one of the things, Paul, you asked a question for a future agenda, but I can address it here in that we do not have the ability, and it has been made abundantly clear by the Department of Ed that we do not have the ability to shift remote. There was a school, I believe it was Dorchester, and they ended up closing for 2 weeks because of the fact it was something like 30% of the school. I mean, it was significant numbers. All but 4 of those days have to be made up because those remote days did not count. So any of those, if we do shift to remote, it has to be approved by the department, and they've been adamant that we do not have access. So that's if we do, then it's the discussion about, as we talked about last year about an MOU with the teachers and hybrid and what that looks like. So I think it would be an easy shift to have those discussions because we have the context. But as of right now, we don't have the ability to consider remote instruction time on learning, which means any days that are remote, they have to be made up in June.
But Brian, my concern is not to do that, but to be prepared to do that if we get the ability. That's all.
Absolutely. Yep.
I was told tonight at dinner by my wife that my son's college is going to remote the first 2 weeks of January.
Yep.
So,
And I think that will be common. I think, my daughter is finishing the semester remote, still living on campus, but they're trying to get everything through next Friday, just remote to just survive the semester. So yes, and I think we can have those discussions. We've had the discussions with the TRTA, and I don't think anyone wants to go there. But I think we're nimble enough now to be able to shift fairly quickly if that were to be approved. Again, the fully remote and the fully in-person are the 2 easiest scenarios. Obviously, fully in person is the best. The next best is everyone fully remote from an instructional standpoint, because again, all of the students are in the same place. So if it were to be shifting fully remote, that's a much easier transition than getting back to hybrid. You were part of a lot of those discussions. So, but yes, still on the radar, lots of chatter, among superintendents and everyone else just about, have you changed anything? Can we change anything? Still haven't had a definitive answer about snow days. I'm putting a little blurb in the Weekly Digest on Friday. A snow day is a snow day, right? It's a remote learning day does not exist still, so it's a snow day is a snow day when we have to cancel. So it's an I make the decision. I don't want to put that on anyone else. So it's still there, but there is nothing new with regard for us to be able to provide remote learning. So we will continue to monitor, we'll continue to do our best, but cases are going up. And if you watch the dashboard, had lots of discussion, I actually was talking with Paul. When we had aggregate numbers in the dashboard, people wanted to see more detailed information about each case. Now it shows line by line, which is great because it shows the quarantine and test and stay impact, but it doesn't show you the totals. So I don't know. Paul has given half of his life, along with Narissa, to Google Data Studio, but it's apparently not an easy tool. So we'll continue to keep that updated. It does require some math if you want to see the totals by a date period, but that is updated real time, and then every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, everything from Wednesday at 5:01 through the following Wednesday at 5 o'clock, that's reported to DESE, is reported out on those Thursday reports. So we're keeping that real time, so those numbers should match. Yeah.
Brian, I have 2 questions if I could. So the first one, in looking at the dashboard, it appears like a lot of the positive cases, I can't tell about the, outside close contacts, but the positive cases seem to be focused in certain schools.
Yep.
Is there a struggle in those schools? Because, just rationally, I'm thinking you have students coming into the classroom and other students who are going out of the classroom pretty much constantly right now, I'm guessing, for some of those classrooms. Is there any need for additional supports? Are we providing additional supports in helping get those students sort of back into the flow of academics?
So say the statement, you mean people coming in and out of classrooms, meaning physically present, not in the classroom, but you're saying they're out on quarantine and then.
Right, so
Yeah.
we can't provide any remote
No.
options to them. So they're basically getting a packet of work, and they're out for, in some cases, some significant amounts of time, depending on what their quarantine or their isolation is. So my question is as those students get, again, I think it's one of those things, right? If it was 69 cases and it was fairly evenly distributed across the district, that would be one thing, but it doesn't appear that way on the dashboard.
Yeah, at Salisbury Elementary and the high school have absolutely taken the hardest hits. Yep.
So I guess my question is, when I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking it's probably not one student, and then they're coming back in, and then sort of that classroom is whole, right, for a week or two, and then you have another student coming in and coming out. It's much more fluid than that. I guess, is that a struggle for them? And do we need to, is the district providing those schools additional supports to help with that? Because my fear is, right, that you have those students that will start falling behind because you have staff members that are getting stretched thinner, trying to help those students that are in and out.
So I would say, are we providing additional supports? We're still trying to fill out all of the staffing for the existing staffing. So it was challenging before that happened. So are we providing, teachers are doing everything, and teachers are doing phenomenal work. At the secondary level, they have access to Google Classroom, and there's a whole lot more involved with posting in Google Classroom. At the elementary, it tends to be more send work home, and then it's a lot more work when the student comes back in. But the level of interventions in Tier 2 instruction has ramped up significantly, and there's a larger number of students, not just those who have to leave and come back, but just in general, there's such a such a change, right, in the environment of what classroom instruction looks like, especially at the elementary level right now, that is it disruptive? Absolutely, but I don't know that that's a whole lot more disruptive than a lot of the other things that are transitioning kids in and out, or just the delayed learning and the missed learning. Do we have a perfect solution? Not at all. No.
Yeah, I just see teachers kind of like at capacity in normal situations. And there are some that are sort of in that at capacity situations, and others that, just looking at the numbers, I have to imagine are beyond capacity. Like, I don't know how they could do it.
Yeah, and I will say, nor do I. Let me finish that statement for you, right? I mean, it's beyond what humans can physically do in many cases. Good and bad. Sometimes families are really good about sharing the information with us. The individual student or staff may already have been quarantined because they were a close contact. There hasn't been in-school transmission that we've been able to document. There's been 2 or 3 cases that we've gone directly to DPH on. And largely it's been, okay, a couple in a classroom, but also had family members at home that were positive. So there was no logical conclusion. So we're reviewing all of that, but a lot of it, by the time we end up quarantining an individual, a number of the days have passed. So there hasn't been someone out who's been out for 10 days. It's generally 4 or 5 days at the most by the time, sometimes more than that. But if they notify us the correct way, it's obviously longer. But there is not a good solution in place. No. And I think we could throw $200,000 at it. And you can see the current enrollment, or not the enrollment, but the jobs posting, and adding tutors and here, there, and that. It's where we can get them. We're putting them in for sure.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, one of the other things that I have seen some districts doing is it seems like athletics and after-school activities to some degree are the source in some cases of some of these cases, not necessarily here, but other districts have traced it to that. And some of them are implementing a mandated testing for after-school activities like that. Is that something you've considered?
Have considered it, yes. Would support, yes, right? That'd be a policy. The challenge will be, we have a partnership with CIC. The judge group is the subcontractor of CIC. We use them for the camp, the 6th grade camp testing. If anyone was involved in that, don't know what the right word for it, but it was not smooth because 1 of 3 people showed up. So it only works if we've got the people to do the testing. I can tell you the nurses do not have the capacity to do the testing. Yeah, I mean, beyond tapped. So considered, yeah, we've talked about it. We've definitely talked about it, and I know the nurses are currently talking about how we could figure that out, and if we can, I would absolutely support that. Yes.
Okay, I just, again, it's hard from the outside because I'm looking at numbers in the dashboard, so I don't know what applies there, but you can definitely see it in news stories. I can hear it from other districts.
Yep.
So I would just, if that's something that we believe,
Yep.
right, would be helpful, I would, be 100% behind putting something like that in place and whatever the school committee needs to be able to do that.
Yeah, we haven't had widespread on a team yet, but there absolutely has been athletic impact, for sure. So, and it would have helped. Yep.
Anybody
Okay.
else have any questions for Brian?
I'll keep going. Buses, not a lot new, other than to say, this gentleman over here spends a lot of time communicating. Some of you, maybe as parents, get his 6:15 a.m. emails. Hey, just so you know, routes 2 and 5 are combined today. So it is. It continues to be a challenge. I appreciate NRT trying, and I certainly appreciate Kyle and all the work he's doing to keep. And we had talked about this, I think, early on over the summer. At least having a communication plan, so he knows by 5:45 which runs won't be running. And then consolidation happens. So just to confirm, all of the routes are staffed. There's not a single extra driver out there is the issue. So around the holidays, when people are sick, someone's out, the bus just doesn't run. The positive side is we have great credits and invoices for all the runs that aren't running. So we would happily pay that money if the buses would run. So just to let you know, that's not for not without a lot of extra effort on Kyle's part, but that it continues to be an incredible challenge. So thank you, Kyle. Just noting the clinics, that was last night, tonight, and Friday night. Pine Grove's, the one at Pine Grove is moved to Friday because of parent conferences tomorrow. They were completely sold. Nope, they're not sold out. They are completely filled. It would be great if we could have sold tickets for that, by the way. So completely filled out, plus walk-ins were not encouraged, but certainly welcomed. So we know that there were 300 slots at each. So that's in addition, in excess of 300 shots being given. So that is a positive. Noting here, a repair that was made to the stadium. Anyone that came to the game on Thanksgiving, you might have noticed the turf looked a lot better. So we did a significant maintenance. There were a couple spots where they had to slice the turf and repair some depressions where it had settled. And then an entire re-grooming where they basically vacuumed up a good chunk of that lovely crumb rubber and sand mix. Groomed it and replaced the crumb rubber. So it's back to its original glory as far as GMAX testing and impact testing and all that. So that is a maintenance that was very much needed, and we're working to get a long-term plan. We just don't have the equipment and the manpower to do that correctly. So we're going to make sure that we're caring for that because that will greatly extend the longevity of the turf itself. Question?
Can I just ask how we're paying for that?
That got charged to the high school maintenance contracted services line item.
Okay, thank you.
This is it might be new to some of you who have been here previously. There's an MOU that's signed between myself, District Attorney Jonathan Blodgett, Chief Dumas in Rowley, Chief Lucy in Newbury, and Chief Fowler in Salisbury. In essence, as I quoted here, it formalizes the collaborative and collective effort of our agencies to ensure the safety, mental health, and well-being of students and to provide a safe, secure, and violence-free setting. I know there are some places that have balked at partnering with law enforcement and the DA. We've always found it to be an incredibly strong and beneficial partnership in that they're able to share information with us and us with them. And the DA, I can speak to our DA as for Essex County, is a strong advocate of diversion in getting students the help they need rather than straight punishment all the time. So they certainly have their beliefs about juvenile justice reform, and there are a lot of things they disagree with because it's hogtied them. But there are, it's a powerful relationship. So I didn't put a copy in here, but if you're interested, certainly you can ping Maureen and she can send you a copy of the signed MOU. We talked about the DEI work. So again, just the formal nature of this is that my goal was to have that equity team functioning later this winter into the spring. So I'm now saying that we'd be formulating that over the summer and start that work into the fall.
Excuse me?
I think yeah.
I just have a question on that. So Brian, when I look at all these proposals for DEI, are you going to suggest to the building heads that they reach out to teachers and see if there's anybody that has a special passion for DEI work within the building, just one or two or three teachers, so that it seems like right now it's all coming from the top down, which is great. But I think you ought to consider just whether or not there's teachers that have a passion for this, because they may be ahead of the curve on the knowledge and the approach and everything else, and they're the ones that are going to be involved in the delivery. So I think they ought to be brought in.
Absolutely.
Just a suggestion.
So the only thing I would push back on, I would not say what's happening now is top down. This is the top making sure we're all on the same page before we start conveying messages. I can tell you there's a heck of a lot more expertise within the teaching ranks than there are for myself speaking right now. So yes, absolutely, that equity team can't be too big, right? It becomes a beast if it's not, it won't be effective, but absolutely it needs to be people who come with a sincere commitment to the work and preferably with some understanding to the table. But yes, those people will be chosen very, very carefully and methodically and very publicly, because ultimately I think people, hopefully when we get to that point, people will be applying to say, I'd like to be part of that, and we're going to have to make some choices, because I would see a committee of, maybe 20, 25 when you're talking about school committee and administration and educators and parents and certainly students at the middle and high school level. So, but a very good point for sure. Yeah. Board docs, just to let you know, I think there's now 4 of the 5 meetings for December are now posted. The high school will be posted next week. So if you now go into board docs where you got to this meeting tonight, you'd see probably 6 meetings, right? This school committee meeting, the P&A meeting that happened before, and then 4 school councils. So we're now, as of December, officially using board docs to post school council meetings as well. We talked about board docs for a long time, and I wasn't sure of the value at first, but now, oh man, it is the best thing we have ever done as far as organizing meetings and postings, and now that tonight hopefully we'll be approving as a second reading the district policy manual, and that's in there as well. So all in for the cost of board docs is roughly $5,000 a year, but we're going to save $1,000 a year on the hosting of the MASC policy. So for the cost of $4,000 a year for the meeting organization, the postings, including all the school councils and subcommittees, an incredible value to manage that process. Mask requirements, just a quick note, nothing's changed. It's through January 15th. We talked tonight at the policy subcommittee. Nothing new. I don't expect anything new, but we'll watch that. And we did talk about the case counts on the dashboard. And to confirm, the leadership change that we've talked about can't remember how much we've talked about it here, but I mentioned to you the idea of Catherine and Jane, so Catherine Daw and Jane Keeler as the principal and assistant principal at Salisbury. I put that out there as an idea, asked for feedback, got quite a bit of feedback, and ultimately, I think the vast majority of folks said, yes, this makes sense, great things happening. It is still a short-term arrangement, so that will be in place through June of '24. At that time, Catherine has noted a rock-solid, cannot change her mind decision to retire. And so at that point, in the winter into the spring of '23 into '24, we'll conduct a full search as we would have, as we did at Pine Grove, as we did at the high school, to find the next principal of Salisbury Elementary School. But that arrangement is confirmed in place through June of '24. Personnel report is attached. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Our contract with NRT runs through 2025, is that correct?
We do a 3 plus 1 plus 1,
3
so it's a
plus 1,
3-year plus 2 option years. I don't have the connection.
FY '21 was the first year, so we're currently in the second year of FY '22. FY '23 would be the third year.
Back on. So just the bus shortage, the bus driver shortages, is that something that you anticipate continuing at this level even as we hopefully ease out of a pandemic situation? Or, I mean, is that going to be an ongoing concern past this year?
You're closer to it than I am.
I think it is. NRT Bus, having discussions with them frequently about how they're going about attracting new workers. I think the challenge is both the pay structure as well as the regulations over the busing industry and what new bus drivers, the process they have to go through to become a new employee. They're putting various measures in place to try and lure folks, but the reality is I think it'll slowly get better, but there isn't a specific, I couldn't say to you in 60 days time or 3, you know what I mean? So it hopefully slowly get better, but it's going to be time.
And so if we're in year 2 now, going into year 3 next year, that's actually good timing because we normally would be bidding in the, late winter, early winter, or midwinter, January timeframe. So if that's the case, now would not be a good time to be bidding because it's in such chaos. But we don't have to commit to our year 4 and 5, so we can put it out to bid and then still exercise 4 and 5. So that would be an opportunity. Both Salter and NRT are owned by the same company now. So there was a mothership created that is basically NRT, but they are the same company, but they're different companies. So it will be interesting to see.
There's one overarching company that owns
Forget the
those
name of
two. Go Beacon,
Go
I
Beacon.
believe is the name of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you described, they're both owned by Go Beacon, but no busing company is immune to
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
whether it be in Massachusetts or statewide. I was just reading about the MBTA, even though
Yeah.
the bus drivers there too, consolidating routes, so it's brutal.
We're going to get our licenses. I guess, I emailed you guys about this, but I am thinking long-term that I think transportation, the cafeteria working, custodial workers are going to stay as staffing issues for a number of years because of the way those pay scales industry-wide kind of are lagging a lot of, they can take their skills and go and do other things and make far more money. So if there's ways to negotiate a new contract creatively so that we can help offer additional incentives to help ease all of those areas, that's where my head is at on those issues. Not so much different companies, but what can we do in those negotiations?
Yeah, that was the suggestion that you, just to tease that out, the suggestion Paul had, it was an email a while back. if you have someone who is a part-time bus driver, could be a part-time custodian, could be a part-time cafeteria worker, to create a full-time employment situation that's benefit eligible and all that. It's a little more complicated because we contract for buses. We don't, they're not our employees. But that doesn't mean that we, right? I don't know how we do it, but you can't be creative and trying to incentivize that. There's one bus driver who's also a cafeteria worker, who's also a EMT firefighter in town. So certainly people are multiple career individuals.
One last thing I just wanted to include on that too is that I did meet with one of the VPs at NRT as well as their new VP of Client Relations, who's a former high school principal. And part of, I guess, one of the benefits of Go Beacon acquiring all those companies and being kind of one company is that they're evaluating all their business processes currently at each of the individual, so evaluating all of Salter's processes, NRT's processes, and it's trying to find out what works best, what systems work best, as well as how they can work together, so to say. So it's certainly a long road ahead with that as well, but to hear that evaluation process is going on and to bring somebody in who, a former high school principal who's directly involved with education and knows what works and what doesn't work, was nice to hear.
Paul, did you have?
Brian, I just had a quick question on one of the new hires, a fellow by the name of Douglas Dunbar.
Yep.
Has he worked as an athletic coach or trainer in the past for the district, do you know?
He's a teacher.
Oh.
So that's why you see the name.
Okay.
I don't know that he's coached before.
Okay.
But he is a middle school teacher.
Brian, I remember
A
one
graduate.
time that you were on a school bus commission or something, weren't you?
Wait a minute, say that again?
Weren't
I
you
feel
at-
like I missed half of that.
Weren't you at some point selected to be on a bus commission?
Oh.
The transportation.
More of a
commission?
sentencing than a appointment. But no, yes, I was appointed by Senator Bruce Tarr to a state transportation commission that was co-chaired by Senator Adam Hines and Representative Alice Peisch, who we should just go on the record is a big fan of mine, based on what I said there. But it's, Adam Hines is phenomenal. I think we've dealt with him on other things. He represents like a third of the state as the western part of the state. Yes, we did have a discussion and there was lots of things we talked about. And then a report was produced that didn't say much of what we talked about or any solutions. So what was produced though. So yes.
So
it
when were
was
you appointed to this
valuable
commission?
experience. I'm sorry, say again?
When were you appointed to the commission?
It was all it was all pre-COVID. The report came out, I want to say in December of, it was due in December of 19. And
Yeah, and it came out in like mid-2020, I think.
I was going to say, I feel like it was due December of 19. I saw a draft in April of 20, and I think it came out officially in December of 20-ish.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking that is, has there been any talk from the state or anything, knowing that every community probably is having this issue with shortages of bus drivers?
I mean, I can't speak completely freely. The discussions we had were not necessarily those that focused around the challenges that has Kyle up every day at 5:30 to check an email to see if all the drivers are there, right? I mean, so the issues we're facing now, we talked about bigger things like collusion and, the kind of the industry shopping and the ability to collaborate. And Representative Peisch is big on electric buses, which are 10 times the cost of a regular bus, but we should find a way. So electric buses isn't going to solve the problem if there's no one there to drive. So there were good topics discussed, but the basis of, or the outcome of those discussions, I would not say did anything to further the challenges that, or further a solution to the challenges we're currently facing. I could never run for office.
I mean, I think the one thing they did, right, is they called in the National Guard, but the National Guard was only able to drive vans because you need a CDL and specialized training to drive a full-size bus. And I think that's the issue, is that there aren't people coming in that have CDLs already in many cases and are willing to take that specialized training to drive a bus. And they can't supply the manpower to do that because you can't take someone like the National Guard and put them through that. They're not a long-term solution. So I think they hear it. I mean, I've definitely voiced to some of our legislators that this is an issue, but I don't think there's a ready resolution to this because the people just aren't there, and it's very hard right now to try and recruit those individuals.
So if we're having the problem with these shortages of people, what's wrong with the self-driving school bus?
A self-driving school bus? You drinking Elon's Kool-Aid?
I would like to formally route Kyle's number to Paul's cell phone. Goes in.
I think that would be like confidence instilling for parents to have, just kidding. Yeah, no, I mean, technology is coming, advancements are coming. You know, the proposal that I made that didn't go well was the state needs to, if this is going to be solved, the state needs to take over transportation, right? As long as there are regions, not Triton, academic regions, but there are regions, there will be competition, and there will be collusion, and there will be companies that buy out territories. So unless the state can bid transportation out and Kyle signs a contract with the state and a bus in Essex, right? You have to have an Essex County price and a Berkshire County price and a Middlesex County price because, of course, the costs of living are different. But until we get there, there is not a solution. I'm confident in that. Hence why I haven't been asked to return.
No, it's just frustrating, because to me, this is another thing that the state should be trying to help with, because now they're putting the burden still on school districts.
Yes.
Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Anybody else have any?
Can I make a motion to receive and file the December 2021 Superintendent's Report as presented?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you. Sandy, can you strike the last 5 minutes from the record?
The next item is the FY22 adjusted budget. Our final budget is voted on by the school committee in March, and we have to use estimates for revenue sources and expenditures because that's all that's available to us at that time. These numbers become more clear as the time goes on and as we get money from the state, and we usually vote on an adjusted budget which moves funds between major line items late in the school year. School business official Kyle Warren is going to take us through the proposed adjustment for the fiscal year 22 budget.
Thank you. So the document that is attached to the agenda was reviewed with Finance Subcommittee. Linda gave you the background on the process there of why we present this budget every year, looking at how we, apologize again. So looking at this year compared to prior years, again, COVID, we're in a, unfortunately, still atypical scenario with the budget as well. Typically, we would have some movement, some transition amongst the staff, and that would, when somebody leaves and then we hire somebody new, there's a change in salaries there, right? Somebody might be column M, step 6 on the salary scale, who left, and then we'll hire them at column B, step 1. Thank you for passing around those copies too. This year, those transitions have just been tenfold. I think we've had around, has it been 70, 80 transitions, something like that. So when we went about the process of evaluating the budget and what adjustments need to be made, we wanted to have a long-term perspective. 2 examples are a middle school special ed teacher retires this month. We brought on the replacement in September. That added cost for that 6-month period is just a one-time cost. We won't be incurring that same added cost next year, so we didn't propose an adjustment for that line item. That overage in that line item will be funded by savings in other areas, so we're able to make that decision and fund it appropriately. But in terms of adjusting the budget, that's not going to occur next year, so we didn't want to make that adjustment. Conversely, at the Pine Grove School, we adjusted a math specialist from part-time to full-time. That was a long-term decision, so we made that adjustment accordingly in the document. So just looking at the two different types of scenarios there. On the second page of the document, the table of contents, it summarizes that background both on the process as well as how we went about it this year. Number one thing to reiterate with this document is there is no increase to the budget. There is no increase to assessments, no changes in revenue assessments. This is simply a reallocation of costs amongst various line items. The majority of those are going to be fixed items such as the TRTA anticipated column movement. So in December of every year, we notify staff that by December of every year, they have to let us know if they anticipate moving over a column on the salary schedule because they are going to receive additional credits. We receive all that information by December 15th, work it into the budget, but then they have to notify us by the end of August whether they actually completed those courses and will actually make the move on the column. So we're reallocating those lines. Some themes here on the other pages. I won't go one by one at each school, but certainly I can take questions. The TRTA column movement is the biggest source of changes in this document. Also at the high school level, evaluating the staffing for special education with instructional assistants and special education teachers. We had a number of instructional assistant positions that were open, unfilled. The decision was made to reduce 5 full-time IA positions and replace those with 2 full-time special education teachers. So that you'll see the adjustment in the document there. And then there was also a market rate review on certain positions, both professional and non-professional line items, where adjustments were made as well. I will leave it there and take any questions you might have.
So I think you said, but just say it one more time. So this doesn't change any of the bottom line. So the assessment calculation, the total operating and capital, and the assessment, none of that changes.
And on page 5 and 6 of the document, it further highlights that because on page 5 and 6, it gives summaries by school location as well as another chart by function. And you can see the net of all those changes are 0. So it's going out of district-wide or coming out of fixed costs and moving to the other categories there. 0 net change.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 22 adjusted operating budget as presented with a total operating and capital expenditure of $45,999,593.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
So just one more thing, just so that everyone understands process. This does not get recertified to the towns because nothing changes. When we, in the past, which we're never going to do again, when we would get to the end of the year and vote to use E&D, that had to be certified because it changed the actual figures. But this is just this resets the numbers when we start the budget in this, after the new year, so it's the most accurate.
Next item is the submission of an SOI for middle school and high school campus. I'm going to start this item with a quick recap. As you're probably aware, there is a capital planning requirement in the latest round of regional agreement amendments. 2 years ago, knowing this was coming, the district commissioned a facilities assessment to help create a plan, and it uncovered some urgent needs. In August, there was a presentation of the assessment with the school committee and representatives from our 3 towns. We further discussed the assessment at a meeting in September, and then in October, we did a tour of the building and the grounds. As of our last meeting in November with the towns, they recognized the need for work to be done and supported the school committee in submitting a statement of interest to the Mass School Building Authority. Superintendent Brian Forget and school business official Kyle Warner are now going to talk through the process and what comes next in regard to submitting a statement of interest.
Thank you. So we don't have to go, I don't think, into extensive detail. There's been a lot of discussion since we first started this with the towns in August. A huge thank you to the towns for understanding where we are in this, that we're not asking for a specific project, we're not making a specific proposal. There is no plan in place right now. The only thing we know is there's lots of repairs needed, $63 million, and we want to partner with the state to find out if will be willing to us to partner with us to pay for a chunk of it. I was on a 2-hour training information session today with the MSBA and the IG's office where they went over the project currently underway in Webster with their high school. And I was encouraged to see the motivation of the MSBA to renovate rather than just strictly go towards rebuilding. When we had this discussion at Pine Grove, I think we've said this so many times, they would have certified a 63,000 square foot new building, but the building is roughly 90,000 square feet. They allowed us to renovate the full 90,000 and partnered with the majority of that through a kind of a program that popped up, we took advantage of and disappeared. It's up to 5 points. We talked about the fact that they set a base reimbursement rate, so call it 50%. We can get an extra 5 points, 55% reimbursement through renovating as much as possible. So, I know there's a fear that in our discussions with the town officials that we're going to go from here's the issue straight to $175 million new building out on the field, and that is not the plan. I don't believe that's the right path forward. But I'm excited to submit the statement of interest and tell the MSBA what we believe we need, and hopefully they will pick me. So just to let you know where we're at, we partnered with a gentleman by the name of Mike Perillo, formerly worked at Doran Whittier. He's an educator and education planner on the architecture side. So we contracted with him to help us write this SOI to make sure that we're writing this almost as if we're doing step 1 for when we get to the next phase with the MSBA and we start to do more formal planning. There's going to be some listening sessions with some students and staff to talk about what the needs are from an educational perspective. We obviously know the structural needs and the mechanical needs. The window opens on January 28th of 22. The window closes, this is the SOI window, the window closes on April 29th. We would expect that if we submit an SOI during that period, that we would hear back. Again, this is the full core program. This is not an accelerated repair, so this is the full core program. We would expect that we would hear back by December of 22, which is a year from now. We would then have 9 months there's a bunch of boxes to check, but the 2 big things are for the towns to fund a feasibility study and to establish a school building committee. That would be a large and widely represented committee. Part of our discussion with this long-term capital planning is, could we have some resources in that stabilization count that could be used to pay for some or all of a feasibility study that eases the burden for towns, that hopefully would be something that wouldn't need an override for the feasibility, and then again for the full project. Certainly, the project is not going to be something that the towns would be able to support in the general budget, so we'd be looking for an override a long ways out. So what we're looking for is your approval to submit the statement of interest. This is similar to when we had Donnie here earlier about the POW chair of honor. This is not the submitting of the statement of interest because you need to see it. So that would be presented to you. You would take a vote on that, and there's actually a certification within the statement of interest that documents your vote on the statement of interest. So we presumptively have already started the work because I'd be shocked if any of you said, now let's hold up now since we've been talking about this for a year. But that is the hope tonight. And again, so we'd be talking about if we got invited in, it would be a year before we knew. We would have 9 months to establish that feasibility, or the building committee and the feasibility study. So we're into mid-late 23. It would likely be at least a year, likely more towards 2 to study. So we're talking about into 24, 25. So we'd be bringing a project to the towns at probably the very soonest in 2025. So this is certainly kicking off a very long process. We like to say when we're accepted, not if we're accepted. I might keep saying that. But as Director McCarthy from the MSBA said, most districts don't get in on their first try. It has everything to do with which applications come in the door each year. So Barbara Hansberry from MSBA and Jack McCarthy were on that call today, and they both did reference ARPA money, and is there any additional federal money? And there still is not. There's still, it sounds like there's political pressures to include some money, to make some money available, even if it's for studying or for HVAC systems or what have you. But at this point, it's the straight MSBA funding. It's 1 penny out of every dollar on the tax rate, or the sales tax, I should say. So there is no new money. So it's the same pool of money. It all depends on who shows up and submits those documents between January and April of 22. So I'll stop there. Did I miss anything? Any questions? Is everyone sick of talking about this yet? We've only just begun.
I'll make a motion to approve the preparation of a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for the Triton Middle and High School campus.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Next item is the policy updates. The full Triton policy manual was reviewed and approved as a first reading at our November business meeting following the transition from the MASC hosted platform to the Board Docs platform. Unless there are new concerns, I believe we are prepared to approve the whole manual, woohoo, as a second and final reading and bring it live into Board Docs. Does anybody have any concerns? Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Triton Regional School District policies as a whole as a second and final reading.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
You ready to be done with policies?
I know. And Brian's saying that the MASC charged us $1,000 to host it, but they didn't do anything for that $1,000 to upgrade anything that needed to be done. So having it in Board Docs and allowing Brian and his team to update it as updates come is worth the money in my book.
You and I
I thank all of you for your time on that.
And thank you and Narissa for your time on that and making that transition. So just to confirm, we have to wait for Board Docs to flip that. They'll flip a switch and make those all live, and then we get trained on the amendment process, because now when we go to amend a policy, it actually flows right through the system and gets attached to an agenda as a first reading and then approved and pushed to the second. So, yay.
Subcommittee reports, policy, Paul Goldman.
Sorry, we're not done with policy. MASC sent out some recommended revisions to policy section D, which is the financial section. So we started this afternoon going through those recommended changes, comparing them to our current policies, and we got through several today. I expect we'll be handling it for all of our January meeting, and hopefully after that, we'll be sending some revisions to the committee in February.
Finance, Caitlin?
We have talked about this for the entire meeting, but Kyle, would you like to add anything?
Yep, we went over the usual reports, the tentative budget, and then the long-term financial planning. Yeah. So a repeat of this meeting, for sure.
Personnel, Police?
So we've been working with the PEC to address health insurance, and we're also in the process of trying to negotiate Brian's contract. That's the extent of it, unless my two other colleagues want to share their thoughts.
And can I just add one update? One other thing we haven't even talked, I'll mention it to the PNN, is we had talked about, obviously Anna's interim assistant superintendent talked about restructuring the titles of the positions and roles. So I'm gonna bring that back to PNN because it involves adjusting some job descriptions. So that will be coming to you, and we'll button that up as we go through the budget process. So busy year for PNN. Sorry. And we're working on, we have just updated with job descriptions with head custodians and custodians. So there's been some transition of representation and individuals. So making progress there, and then that has to come back to the PNN as well.
Correspondence. In board docs, you will find correspondence received by the administration about the upcoming NEASC accreditation visit to Triton High School on December 12th to the 15th. You should also have received an email from Principal Kelly regarding the NEASC team's request to meet with the school committee on Sunday. So I know several of us have emailed Mr. Kelly, so it will be changed to the library where we're going to be meeting. And I hope everyone will respond to him. Yes, Paul?
I do have a question. So Brian, we've been through this NEASC a while ago. We weren't invited to that one. What prep are you going to give us for this?
I don't give you any prep, nor am I there. So Patrick will welcome you and then leave as well. So this is your opportunity to be with the visiting team. It was always part of the process. Apparently was not widely communicated to you that you were part of the process. But yeah, so this is your opportunity. So that you don't need to prep anything, right? They come in and ask questions. So it's not you presenting, it's them, right? They're coming in with the accreditation standards to assess how the high school, I mean, that's the primary, but ultimately they have a discussion about the district as a whole. So that's your opportunity to have a candid discussion with them. So Phil Conrad, who was on the letter, is the superintendent in Bedford, formerly the principal at Andover High School. He's leading the effort. Just easy guy, right? It's NEASC used to be gotcha. You have to rise to our standards. They've realigned everything. It's now gone from 7 to 5 standards. It used to be 4 days. Now it's really 2. And they align it around the goals we've established in our school improvement plan and our district strategy. So it's still rigorous for sure. But yeah, that's your opportunity to answer the questions honestly and candidly. It is voluntary, right? No one, you don't have to be there, but for all 9 of you, you're welcome to be part of that discussion.
So Brian, is there anything that we should be bringing with us? I mean,
Nope.
Are they going to ask real specific questions, or do you know what types of things they're interested in learning from us?
No, so I mean, they spend, right, Sunday doing some prep work and then all day in the building. So they're the investigators, right? So they're coming in to see the work that they did 2 years ago when they were here, and Patrick and the team identified, here's where we need to improve. Here, we tell them, and they say, yeah, we agree with you, or no, we disagree. We think you should focus here. That work has been in process. Obviously, there's a clear understanding that the last 2 years have been slightly different than the normal 2 years. So there's a realistic understanding, but I would say to you, if there's something that you question or have a concern or want to celebrate, that's your opportunity to share with them. And they're not going to take your word. They're going to then go in and look for it. Does that make sense? So they're not coming in, right? There's nothing wrong that you can say, other than our high school's awful, please don't accredit us, stopping shy of that. But, I mean, if there's concerns, if there's things to celebrate, absolutely raise them. Yeah.
Executive session. The school committee is expected to enter into executive session for purpose of conducting contract negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically the superintendent of schools.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of conducting contract negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically the superintendent of schools, to return to open session.
I'll second.
We need a roll call vote. Paul Mayette? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Paul Lees?
Yes.
Paul Goldner?
Yes.
Susanna?
Yes.
Narissa?
Yes.
Caitlin?
Thank you. Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, we are returning from executive session, and I'm going to hand it off to Paul Lees.
So the Personnel and Negotiation Committee has been meeting with Brian Forget for a number of weeks, and the full committee has been involved in the decision-making process. And we have agreed with Brian Forget to increase his salary to $194,957 effective July 1, 2022, and it's a 3-year contract.
Make a motion to approve the superintendent of schools contract as negotiated.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you all very much. I look forward to many more years, hundreds, at least 3, before I retire. But no, thank you, I appreciate it. And been at Triton for 27 years and no other place I'd rather be, so thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for all the work that you do. Have a nice night.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Holidays, yes. Thank you. And Linda's a bus driver. I wonder if the stream ended yet.